Hey everyone, Colt here. Today we'll be covering the famous Mara 300 pull without using a Zanza pot. This pull ends up being closer to 325, 350 mobs, depending on a few patrols here and there, but the route I'll show you should keep you above the 325 mark consistently with no resets. Keep in mind the route will get updated to the 500 pull when ZG comes out, but doing the 500 pull now is really rough since Zanza is so helpful for that one. I'll be sure to post an updated guide when that happens, but make sure to practice the 300 route beforehand, as it'll be largely the same. The first thing I'll say is make sure you have the Scepter of Celebris before attempting to boost Mara. You can get this by grabbing the quest outside of the orange area, and then looting an item from Lord Viletongue on purple side, Noxian on orange side, and taking them to Celebris to craft the Scepter. This lets you zone into the correct place to start the pull, and it's really a requirement to do this efficiently. Before we get started, let's talk about what you should expect from a gold and experience standpoint. If you're selling 4 spots to boost this, you'll be getting about 250 to 300 gold per 5 runs. Given the runs take anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to fully reset because of all the travel time, your gold per hour is going to be closer to 225. I've seen claims of this being upward of 500 gold per hour. That's just not realistic. If you're boosting Mara solo, you're going to get anywhere from 150 to 200 gold per hour just on the raw loot. And if you're doing it to sell the boost, you're going to get anywhere from kind of 225 to 250. Talking about what your boosties should expect, they're going to be getting anywhere from 35k to 45k experience per run, which nets out to somewhere around 110 to 180k experience per hour, depending on the level, how many people you have in the group, and how fast the runs are. This is by far the fastest way to level from the mid 30s to low 50s, but you can come here as early as level 30 and stay until 52. Boosties will also earn more experience with 3 people in the group versus a full group of 5. Now let's cover talents, gear, and consumables needed for this. Starting with the talents, we'll be taking 31 points in the Frost Tree, prioritizing improved Frostbolt over Elemental Precision since the extra hit isn't needed given the mob levels. We'll also skip any Shatter crit talents since all our damage will come from Blizzard. Moving over to the Arcane Tree, our usual 5 points in the top row, and then 5 out of 5 Magic Absorption is a hard requirement for this, as it gives us infinite mana back from the resists on the Sprite cast during the kill phase. Feel free to flex some of these talents in the Arcane Tree, for example grabbing Improved Mana Shield over Arcane Meditation if you're having trouble actually getting to the kill phase, but what I've shown here is what I would recommend and it works really well. Next up, let's cover gear. There aren't really any hard gear requirements to do this. You can do it completely naked, but a few things will help. First is having a sizable enough mana pool to actually gather everything and blink basically on CD for about 10 minutes before going is going to make this a lot easier. You can prioritize intellect and then something like spirit, MP5, then stamina, but eagle gear off the auction house is perfectly viable. A good target, 6,000 mana, unbuffed, is really easy mode for this. 5,000 mana unbuffed is completely fine, and then it sort of gets harder as you go down from there because you have to be really efficient with your casts as you're gathering. Lastly, feel free to grab a little bit of nature resist in the form of a ring, gear from Noxian and Razor Lash on the orange side, glowing Brightwood Staff, or the Necrophile set from Skolo. You don't need to over-index on nature resist. I run with about 40 from the Necropolis set, glowing Brightwood Staff, and then my magic absorption talents. And I never have any issue with resist running 40. A few fun items to wrap up the gear section. First, starting with life stones, having a little bit of passive health regen as you're gathering all these mobs actually adds up, and this can be a really easy way to keep yourself healthy. Also gives you an on use if you need it in a pinch. Nifty stopwatch can also be good as you're learning the pull, just to have a speed boost here and there in case things get a little bit messed up and the mobs sort of get on your back and you need a way to create some space. And then finally, I like keeping a resurgence rod on me. There are times here when you're actually going to just be waiting for long periods of time, and being able to just throw this on for some massive regen, both on the health and mana, it helps a lot in terms of just getting back a little bit extra mana or generating a little bit of health to stay healthy as needed. This resurgence rod comes from the quest to kill Princess, which you can get just outside of Shadowprey Village. Lastly, let's talk through the consumables you'll need, starting with what's required in my opinion, which are health pots, mana pots, bandages, and nature protection pots. The nature protection pots will help give you a little bit of an absorb shield so your blizzard isn't interrupted during the kill phase, and really helps offset any need for a lot of nature resistance. A few things that I would recommend but aren't really required are things like swiftness pots. These will make the pull substantially easier. I use one almost every pull just to make sure it never gets messed up and you can keep that mob count really high. Limited invulnerability potions are great if you make a mistake and you need to save the pull. And then iron grenades are always useful for something like this to help pull a few of the tricky packs and create some space if needed. A few super optional items are things like Nightfin Soup for some passive mana regen, Shadow Protection potions, and magic resistant potions. These can make things a little easier, but they're not really needed. The final thing I'll add is you will need an elixir of giant growth if you're playing a gnome. There are two areas where the gnome model is just too small and you'll actually end up swimming instead of running. So to keep that speed up, you'll need to use an elixir of giant growth. Let's talk a bit about where to enter the instance and where to have your boosties stand. First, you'll want to drop down from entering the main area of Maraudon outside the instance and walk around this path here. If we look to our right, we'll see orange side. This is where you can get the quest for Rod of Celebris. And if we go left, this is where we'll take our boosties and where we'll enter the instance. Staying here on the top platform and walking around leads us to the purple entrance, and this is where your boosties will want to enter. They can sit there right inside the instance and they won't have any trouble, but if they veer too far to the right, you'll see this patrolling group of sprites that they can pull if they go around the corner. So you really want them to kind of stay right in the instance. Use these rocks as a reference point. Don't go past the rocks. Now working back to where we'll use the Scepter of Celebris to enter the instance. This will put us down in the main area here, and we'll be able to start the pull here in this Hydra area. So starting here in the bottom of the Hydra area, we're really just trying to get up to the Princess Room without getting into any combat. We don't want to pull any mobs as we're going through this area. You'll typically see a Guardian patrol of rock elemental guys right through here, and we want to just make sure that we don't pull those. They can be a little tricky with how they patrol against the lizards, so sometimes you might need to wait or blink past them. If you do end up pulling these mobs, you can hop behind this big rock structure here. Just get in the left there and nuzzle up between the rock and the wall, and that's a reset spot for you to drop combat. Once you get to this bridge, we're really starting to think about beginning the pull. There's a few decisions you need to make here around how many mobs you want, what the patrols look like, and things like that. So the first thing I would recommend doing is going ahead and applying fresh dampened magic, a new barrier, and your Nightfin Soup, and then drinking the full before you start. You'll see the Guardian pack is up the ramp a bit here. You may need to move up the ramp to actually render those into your field of vision, or else they patrol really, really slowly. There's also a behemoth padding here. You don't want to pull that. The Guardians will social the behemoths, so try not to pull those. If you do accidentally get one, it's no big deal. They'll reset later. It just makes things a little tougher as you're setting this up. So you'll see me go ahead and wand the Guardian pack here and just blink around the corner, and I'm heading into Princess's room. As I'm coming around the corner here, I'm looking down the ramp for the next Guardian pack, and you see it just pops in there, and so I know it's going to be at a full speed patrol, and it'll get to me pretty quickly. If you don't see it, you may need to etch down the ramp a little. Try not to pull the behemoths, but you want to get that rendered into your vision so that it runs to you pretty quickly. Once you get both packs here gathered up, you can just do a jump nova, and then we're going to hop down on the side of this behemoth. As I fall down, I'll go ahead and blink for safety, and then I'll start my timer. The reason I start a 30-second timer here is because I want to keep the mobs I just pulled close enough to me so that they don't reset. So I'll hang out around this terror on the ground for about 30 seconds, and then I can continue on with the pull. It's a good idea to just refresh your dampen, let your mana regen. Ideally, you want to be at full mana when you leave this area. And now we're going to go over here and we can grab this Hydra. I'll go to the corner of this rock and I'll use a rank 1 blizzard down below to pull the Hydra. And then I'll blink away towards the bridge. This has now started a bit of a timer where I'm in a race with that Hydra to get to the bottom of the next area. Keep in mind the boss is down below. I do not want to pull that when I'm grabbing this last Hydra here. So I'm hugging the right, running to this point, and I'm going to Blizzard down below to grab that Hydra. I will skip this if the boss is there because I don't want to pull the boss. This completes the 4 optional pulls you can do to start this. It's completely fine to just drop down and continue on this area without being in combat up to this point. That's a nice progression if you want the pull to be a little easier, and you can always start with 100% health, 100% mana. I would recommend skipping the 4 mobs and packs that I've already pulled and just starting here. Once I get to the bottom of this area, I'm going to want to pull the Patrol and Guardian pack and the Hydra. I typically rank 1 Frostbolt the Hydra, and then I'll pull the Guardian pack depending on where it is with either a Wand, Cone of Cold, or a rank 1 Blizzard in this case. The 3 Borer packs need to all be pulled separately. In fact, all the Borer packs in the dungeon need to be pulled separately, so I'll use a combination of Arcane Explosion, Nova, Wand, and rank 1 Fire Blast to pull these, prioritizing Wand and Fire Blast to save mana if the timing allows. I'll blink here, and then I want to make sure I don't blink on cooldown after this last blink because I know the Guardian pack that I pulled earlier is going to be coming down to meet me. These mobs have a really nasty stun, and you'll see me Cone of Cold here into a Nova to keep my distance. And keep in mind, if you ever do get stunned, you can also blink out of the stun. Just be cognizant of your character positioning. As I come around the corner here, I will grab this pack with an Arcane Explosion or Fire Blast. And then for this Borer pack, I typically use a max range counterspell on this exact mob. You can see me press the counterspell, Cone of Cold to get myself a little bit of time. Then I'm just going to rank 1 Arcane Explosion and blink around the corner. I'll usually pull these lizards with a rank 1 Fire Blast, but because of the timing with the pat, I went ahead and did a Cone of Cold here just so it lined up. As I grow up the ramp here, I'll usually do a Jump Nova, and then I'll blink once I have the angle on the ramp into a rank 1 Fire Blast on this boar. I'll use the same max range counterspell on this lizard, and then as I'm approaching the top here, I'll pull that Borer pack with either an Arcane Explosion or a Fire Blast before blinking. I usually do a Jump Nova on these boars, and then I'll blink one more time towards the top of this ramp before turning around and grouping the mobs a bit with a rank 1 Blizzard. I'll use 3 to 4 ticks here to buy myself some time, and then I'll usually grab this far pack with either a Fire Blast or a Counterspell, and then I'll run across the bridge, and here you have the option to rank 1 Blizzard or Counterspell to grab this pack, give myself a little bit of distance before blinking and jumping down. As soon as I land, this is a good time to bandage, reapply my shields, and then queue up a rank 1 Blizzard. As soon as I see the mobs come back into my field of vision, I'm going to go ahead and drop my Blizzard here to start slowing them. This is just another area where we'll do some grouping. I usually let this go 3 or 4 ticks. Then I'll turn into a Jump Cone of Cold, blink into a Jump Nova. You want to make sure you grab this Guardian pack. If Cone of Cold isn't up yet, you can do a max range Arcane Explosion. And then I went ahead and Nova just to create some distance here. As I come around the corner here, I'll typically pull this pack with a rank 1 Fire Blast before moving into the Hydra area. I grab this Hydra with an Arcane Explosion, and then I blink to create some distance. The Hydras hit very hard, so you really want to keep your distance in this area. If you want to maximize the number of mobs you can pull, it's a good idea to hug right here and take a big loop around the Hydra area. It gives you the opportunity to pull more. It's completely fine to go straight through the middle and save yourself some headache, as this area can be pretty tricky depending on where the patrols are. You'll see here I try to greed this Hydra and then recognize, hey, it's just too far away for me to pull, and I end up bailing on it. I'll then skip this Hydra and let it social, and I'm running out the other end of the Hydra area here. This is the point where you'll want to use an Elixir of Giant Growth if you're playing a gnome, as you don't want to start swimming in this area with all the mobs chasing you. As I round this last corner, you'll see me blink and throw down a rank 1 Blizzard. For just a couple ticks, I had a lot of space here, so I didn't need to hold it very long, but typically I'll hold that for 2 or 3 ticks at least, and then I'll move on up. I body pull this borer pack, and then I use a rank 1 Blizzard on the borer pack there before blinking the corner and heading up the ramp. Now I'll use an Arcane Explosion to grab that borer pack, I'll cut the corner on this rock, and I'll usually use a rank 1 Fire Blast in conjunction with a grenade right here to pull the borer pack while at the same time giving myself some space. I can now use Arcane Explosion to pull this, Fire Blast to pull this, and then here I'm going to use a combination of Counterspell, Swiftness Pot, and Blink to make sure I get the far pack while safely getting around the corner here and creating some distance on the mobs. I really recommend just using a Swiftness Pot here. If you use the approach I've shown you, Swiftness Pot will always be up. You'll always be able to make this run without using blinks, and it'll give you a really good opportunity to regenerate some mana as you're going through this area. Once you get to the end of the area here, you're going to hug the right, jump up the side here, and we're really just walking to the edge of the water while we're letting our mana regen. Continue to put your mana gems on cooldown as you're going through this, and get to the edge of the water, turn, and do a rank 1 Blizzard. Once we hop down, I'll usually blink and then reapply my barrier, and now I'm just letting my mana regenerate as I run to the next pack. Ideally, you want to be between 40 and 50% mana here. If you're lower than that, consider using a mana pot as soon as your pot comes on cooldown, or skip some of these packs. I'll rank 1 Fire Blast the Lurker into a Jump Nova, and then blink to create some distance. And I'm just going to be pulling these Shamblers and Lurkers with my Fire Blasts, with my Arcane Explosions, and a combination of Social. I'll always Cone of Cold the Slimes there, and then I'll always try to Fire Blast that far mob there. As you go up the ramp, don't pull the Dryads. They're very painful if you get them in the group. And you'll see me using a Counterspell into a Jump Nova to pull the far slimes. I get to the top of the ramp here, queue up my grenade, and then use an Arcane Explosion to tag those slimes while swinging this corner wide. I blink through this so the Hydras don't hit me, and then I'll use a rank 1 Fire Blast on that far mob, which keeps those slimes from resetting. Here, these mobs are a little spaced out, so you can see I tried to Nova both, but missed them because of a bad pat, and then just use the Fire Blast to get them instead. I run straight through that mob, so it'll pull from Social or Body Pull, use a Counterspell, and then blink the corner, Fire Blasting these slimes right before they get out of line of sight. I usually use an Arcane Explosion or Cone of Cold here, and then a Jump Nova on the 2 slimes to make sure they're in combat. I'll typically use a Fire Blast or Arcane Explosion to pull the Satyrs, and then blink to get some space, and usually Arcane Explosion or Fire Blast the 2 trees right before I hop down. Now once you hop down, important to note, you don't really care what your health or mana is here. As long as you're alive and both are above 1, you're fine for the rest of the pull. You shouldn't take any more damage, and you have a great chance to regen a ton of mana here. So we'll run up the top of the ramp, just past this tree branch, and then we'll evocate back to basically full mana. I'm going to go ahead and queue up my rank 1 Blizzard so I can group the mobs a bit. And then I'll target the tree down below and use a rank 1 Frostbolt to pull that before doing a 180 and blinking out of there. You don't need to pull any of these mobs because they're all going to social pull from the big pack. And really we're just trying to get to this back room as quickly as possible here. Once we get here, it's rank 1 Frostbolt, Counterspell, and rank 1 Fire Blast. And then we'll turn and get out of there using Arcane Explosion, Cone of Cold, and Fire Blast to pull any remaining mobs here in the corner. I like to save the Fire Blast for the sprites here because they're a little further out of range, and then I usually run right to this tree before blinking. I didn't get that tree, but it's okay, I'll get it on the way back. I'll use my Nova here before dropping down, and now I'm running straight to the edge of the water. Here I'll target this root between the pillar and tree, and as soon as the mobs pass the tree, I'll send the rank 1 Blizzard to group them. I'll then pull these 3 trees, usually do a jump cone of cold there, into a blink nova. Just running around the corner, buying myself a little bit of time here, and I want to turn and go ahead and use rank 1 blizzard to group the mobs up while staying right on the corner of where the ground meets the ramp. I'll do a couple blizzards here so the mobs get nice and grouped, and then I'll tag these sprites with a rank 1 fire blast before heading up the ramp. I'm going to swing this nice and wide with an arcane explosion into a blink to get over the ramp without getting Z-axis hit by the mobs. You'll definitely get one shot there, so be super careful to time the blink in a way that most of the mobs will not hit you. As we're running up the ramp here, we don't have to worry too much about pulling these. All of this will social by the big pack, and we're really just trying to get to this spot here so we can safely rank 1 blizzard for some grouping before dropping down. You'll see I'm starting to regen some mana from the sprites, and a nice rank 1 blizzard here lets me group everything up before hopping down. And then I go ahead and blink to create some distance, and here's a great opportunity to make a mana gem or two. If you have a bunch of corruptions or poisons on you, you can block it. I usually don't. And I'll also go ahead and apply my nature pot at this point. You want to tag this mob with a wand so that it has time to run around and get back into the bigger group. But here's a good opportunity to bandage. And then we're going to look down the hallway. Once we see the big group coming, we'll go ahead and start pulling these remaining packs. I'll usually Nova here at the end, just to give the pack time to catch up to this group. And then I'll swing this a little wide because I know those satyrs are going to get pulled socially. And they usually get pulled on the way. Here, right as I get to this concrete slab, I like to turn, do a rank 1 blizzard, blink all of the concrete section here, and then turn and blizzard again just to help with the mob grouping. Now we're really just swinging this area wide. We want to make sure we have time for blink to come off cooldown, and we want to make sure we've got any of the mobs here that we might have missed. As I get to the left here, I'm going to blink just to the right of that totem pole, and if you see, the mobs will then fold back on themselves and create a really nice grouping there. I go ahead and tag that because I missed it earlier, but it would have social pulled anyway. Here at the bottom of the ramp, I'm going to target this far mob, use counterspell, then into a blink rank 1 arcane explosion. I'll then head up the ramp with a fire blast on this tree, and now I'm going to go under this archway to grab the 2 stealth mobs, usually with a rank 1 arcane explosion, but you can also use Frost Nova as well. I'm then sort of taking this turn wide, so you'll see me run almost directly at that tree, and then run directly at this root. The idea is I want the mobs, again, taking a wide turn, so that when I blink the corner here, they fold back in on themselves and group up a little bit more. This is another great opportunity to regen some mana or bandage. You could also use a potion here if you needed to, but I like to save potion at this point. But do throw a nature protection on if you need. You'll see me apply mage armor and go ahead and do one more rank 1 blizzard, and then I'll walk down this next area, not in a rush, just letting some mana regen. As I get to the end here, it's really important not to drop down yet. You don't want the mobs to be too far away from you when you drop down, or else they'll all reset. So I make sure to turn and do a rank 1 blizzard here just to group the mobs one final time, really. Let them get a little bit closer and make sure they don't reset. And then I'll hop down and finish this last grouping, just again to give the mobs time to catch up to me, because I don't want to be too far ahead of them from the reset here. After a couple ticks of blizzard there, I will blink this root. Feel free to hold that one a little longer if you need some time to get hit by the sprites so your mana regens. But once you do that last blink, you're really in a race to get to the kill spot, and you want to make sure that you're getting over this bridge, blinking on cooldown, before the mobs start to hit you. As you reach the top of the ramp, we want to make sure our mage armor is up, we're reapplying our barriers and damp if those have expired, and we're setting up for the kill. As we approach the area here on the ground, let's talk about a few mechanics of the kill phase. First, as I'm setting up, I'm going to this Y on the ground here, and I'm just going to position myself on the front of that Y. This is very tactical, it's very repeatable. This will work every single time. I'll throw my max rank blizzard here. 3-4 ticks as the mobs are grouping up. I really just want the mobs to be mostly out from under here. And then I'm going to run straight to the nose of this little skeleton, and I'm going to throw my next blizzard right over top of this totem pole. Now what this is going to do is it's going to line of sight the sprites so that all those little sprites can't shoot you from down here, and they're forced to run all the way up the ramp. Now for my first jump, I like to jump, like I said, to the back pillar, and that guarantees the hydras will run back down the ramp. If you jump to the front pillar, there is a chance the hydras will run back down the ramp. There's a chance the hydras will still run this way and melee you. Even if you're getting to the very far right, there's no way to guarantee that the hydras won't come over here. And that's why I like to utilize a combination of this. So jumping back to the rock is basically foolproof from this front area. You don't even have to look. You can face the totem pole or face this little ashtray thing, and you can just strafe jump and you'll never miss the jump. Jumping from the back is it's a little harder. Still completely doable, even in a strafe jump, but it's just much easier to mess up. And so if you're more comfortable jumping from the front, what I would recommend doing is just giving yourself a little space from the ledge, jumping to this back, using that at least for your first couple groupings until you feel comfortable that the pole's all nice and clumped. You've killed off a few of the mobs. And then it's really easy to just jump down, one tap W, one tap spacebar, and you'll hop right up here, and then you can do a strafe jump that you'll never mess up. And so what I like to do for that first jump, I'll jump to the back, put my blizzard right in here somewhere, let everything get grouped back up, and then what's happened is all the sprites have moved up here and they're in a nice little line. So when I come back up to the top, you'll see me target about half the sprite pack with my blizzard. And this allows me to kill off half the sprites, so I keep some of them for the mana battery, but I kill off a portion of them, so I don't have to worry about them interrupting my blizzard. That's the reason you don't really have to worry about nature resist, is because you'll have most of the sprites will be dead and you'll only leave a few alive pretty quickly into the pool. Feel free to experiment with these two jump points. If you're more comfortable going down here, I'll say this one is just a walk off, you don't jump, and then you can strafe jump right back up, really easy. This one, you want to give yourself a little room from the ledge, pressing W to jump here, and then it's just hold W. Once you get against the front of the pillar, tap spacebar, then tap W, and you'll always make it up. Now you can strafe jump. So let's take a look at an actual kill here with some commentary. You'll see me move between my two starting locations to LOS the sprites, jump to the back pillar, and then hop down to the front pillar and jump back up. This next blizzard placement kills the majority of the sprites so that I don't have to worry about them breaking my blizzard anymore, but I can still keep a few for the mana battery. We'll see now I'm comfortable utilizing the front pillar for a nice easy safe jump, and then I continue to rinse and repeat, leaving 2 or 3 sprites up to make sure I stay topped off on mana. Before we wrap up, I'll show the Nova instance tracker of one of my recent pulls, which is about 344 mobs at just over 20 minutes inside the instance. Let's quickly talk about what to do if you fall down. This is going to happen. It happens to the best of us. So if you're doing your jump here and you happen to fall, all the mobs are going to be chasing you, and you need to have a plan for how to get out of there safely. It doesn't mean the pull's over. It doesn't mean you need to panic, but you do have to be prepared to handle that. The first thing I would say, have limited invulnerability potions on you in case this happens. A really easy thing to do. Let's say I miss my jump here. Oh no, all the mobs are coming down. I can pop my limited invulnerability potion. I can do a few max rank arcane explosions for damage, and then I can do a jump nova and run out of the pack and just run back up here. This gives you time to get back up here. You can tank some of the melees if a few resists on the nova. The other thing, if you don't have a lip or if your potion's on cooldown, if you fall, And the mobs, if they're super close, you can ice block, wait a second, and then you can spam your cancel or ice block blink macro to get the distance here, and then you can go straight into the same loop where you run up here, taking time to turn and rank 1 Blizzard as you need to keep the mobs off of you, utilizing your Nova. Same kite strategy as earlier. You're really just going to want to blink on cooldown and utilize rank 1 Blizzard. This is a great area to do it, this corner here. Try to do it on the corners as much as you can. And then what I really like to do is hit the corner here, turn, and rank 1 Blizzard right here. And so the mobs will all be coming through here. This rank 1 Blizzard is really nice at clumping them. You can do it right on top of this root, and then you jump down, instant blink, and now you just race back to your kill spot really easy. The other thing you can do, if you're ever in this area and you feel like the mobs are just so close to you, you don't have time to make the jump safely, and you just need to bail, you can turn and blink, run around this pathway, and you can make this jump right here pretty easily to the left side of the tree, give yourself a few extra seconds, and then you want to run to this sort of inward vertex right here. So when you get to this point, what we're doing, you can see if I turn, I'm making a line. There's another point on the rock here. I'm making a line between this point, and this pillar. And now what you can do is group the mobs here. When the mobs get to this corner, you can turn and run and jump, land on this pillar, and go into an ice block here. This will make all of the mobs run back around, just like this, all the way back to this area here. And so once they've all passed you safely, the reason you ice block is because they'll melee you on the way by. Once they've all passed you, you can hop up here and you can go into your Zanza jump. Now the way I like to do the Zanza jump is you see this little circle on the ground here. You come to the front right part of the pillar, you run straight to the left side of this little circle on the ground, and then you can make the jump even without Zanza. This is much easier for a gnome than it is for other classes, but there have been times when I've had to make this, 6 or 7 times in a row, even with no Zanza. I will say killing from back here is a little harder because you tend to kill your sprites more quickly and you run out of mana. So what you can do, if you ever get back here and you get stuck and you want to get to, back to your normal kill phase, what you can do that works really well is you're blizzarding, kind of right here in this area to slow the mobs. Again, try to hit these corners just so you hit the mob on this plane and on this plane when they make the turn. Once the mobs get pretty close to you, I like to actually even turn my character beforehand. Once the mobs get really close to you, you make your jump, and then you rip a swiftness potion. You can also rip the swiftness potion before the jump to make sure you make it. So an example of what that looks like, I'm here, I turn, I press my swiftness potion, then I make my jump, and now I am booking it around this corner. The mobs are turning and running back up here, and you want to cancel your swiftness potion here, and boom, you're right back. Or you can, to be super safe, if you still have hydras, you can cancel your swiftness potion and jump to this back pillar. Then you put your blizzard down up here somewhere, and you're back in your kill spot. So those are a few areas, if you get hung up, a few kind of alternative plays you can make to get back to the kill spot and salvage the pull. There's a lot of flexibility with this kill phase. There's a lot of ways to save it. If you fall down, it's not the end of the world. It's just going to take a few more minutes, but always better than wasting, 15 minutes setting up the pull, going out. Now your pathing's going to be messed up, all of those things. Well, that's all for this one, guys. Hope it helped you out. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to drop a like and a sub, as it really helps the channel grow. Happy hunting, and I'll see everyone in the next one.